Hello everyone, my name is Ishan and welcome to TheRaceMonkey. I'm sat inside the Citroën C3 AirCross, a car that is meant to be taken out on the open road on long distance tours for a family of 5, 6 or 7 in absolute comfort. This is a no nonsense, no frills, but a lot of thrills car for the masses. And Citroën had nailed it with the mechanical setup on this one. But what it lagged at most was an automatic gearbox. So this one now gets that. This is a 6-speed torque converter that has been fitted to the 1.2-liter turbocharged petrol engine that was already there in the C3 AirCross. Now, I'm headed back to Gurgaon and I have very small amount of time to spend with this car right now to give you a brief of how the C3 AirCross with the automatic gearbox feels like. And to start off with, we'll do a 0 to 120 to 0 test that we last did with the BMW 3 Series with the 2-liter twin-stroke turbocharged petrol engine. But this car requires it too because this 1.2-liter engine is one of the most powerful 1.2-liter engines in India right now, mated to this rather slick 6-speed automatic gearbox. So I push hard on the brakes, throttle it out, and off I go. 19 seconds. 19 seconds is what it took for the Citroën C3 AirCross with this 1.2-liter turbocharged petrol engine and this 6-speed automatic gearbox to do 0 to 120 kilometers an hour and back to 0 kilometers an hour with just the driver in the car. And that is very, very impressive considering this is a crossover which can carry 6 people. And even if you are carrying 6 people and luggage, this still would be a very safe and reliable partner over the long distance trips. The brakes are absolutely crispy. The way it accelerates doesn't make me feel like this has a 1.2-liter engine. The Hyundai Venue N line is a good competition to this. This probably is going to be very, very close to that car in terms of its outright acceleration. And that's phenomenal because this is not a dual clutch automatic gearbox. This is a torque converter. Old school technology that's going to be reliable and trouble-free. Trouble, the synonym of dual clutch automatic gearboxes. Now, the C3 AirCross out on the open road feels very good to drive. It's a very relaxing car. I've just switched to drive. I have started off my econometer just to remind me that I should be driving in a more economical way. And although I'm not doing a long distance trip, I have reset my trip computer to 0 just to see how good of fuel economy I can get within the city, which I am guessing it would be around 11 and a half, 12 kilometers to the liter. But with air conditioning running on full blast, set to the minimum temperature settings, this should be interesting. What is also interesting is the ride quality. I mean, Citroën's ride quality is absolutely phenomenal. The way this car rides through the bad roads, oof. I just wish other manufacturers paid as much attention to ride quality as much as Citroën has done. This is one of the most well-engineered suspension setups in the industry right now. I mean, if you're spending about 14 odd lakh rupees on a family crossover, the Citroën C3 AirCross is an absolutely brilliant bet. And especially if you're buying crossover for long distance trips for your family and friends. There is not a single substitute at this price point that you would love to have. Now, although a lot of people have questioned the reliability factor and the longevity factor of Citroën as a brand, and if it would survive as much as Hyundai has, or Tata has, or Kia has, because of the lower sales volume. Now, the problem is Citroën, as they say, or at least their management says, that it has done quite a lot of market study in terms of what the demands are of the market and how does the consumers behave in terms of what they want in a car and the needs, which are very, very important for the Indian consumers. Now, we've been spoiled by the Koreans and the Germans in terms of the equipment levels that they offer on board, like sunroof or a massive armrest or ADAS and so forth, even in smaller cars. Citroën, however, has stuck to the bare basics. In a lot of ways, it works because a lot of people like me don't like complex vehicles where you have touchscreens and touchpads to function each and everything inside the car. I actually detest that in a lot of ways. But almost 99% of the consumers in India want that sort of fascinating equipment on board when they spend anywhere upwards of 10 lakh rupees on a car. Now, what philosophy Citroën, we're going over some really rough patch of a road. Yeah, oh yes, oh, can't feel anything. Anyway, so the philosophy that Citroën follows is give the equipments to the consumers that are easy to use, are reliable, and over the longer period of the ownership won't fall apart and would be cheaper to service. Now, that's a very wise move because a lot of these European and Korean manufacturers, they give a lot of equipments, a lot of features in the car which are very fancy, but at the end of the day comes the reliability of these features. Heated seats at a cheaper cost. There's ADAS, touchscreen infotainment system which has too many functions in it, connectivity tech, so on and so forth. A lot of these features don't work really very well. And let's say in an ownership of 3 to 4 years, they start falling apart. That is what Citroën wants to address. They want to give you a car which is simple to use and robust to take any sort of abuse you throw at it. Like, this dashboard is so simple, it's so ergonomically designed and engineered that I can spend hours and hours without complaining about why is that function there. That's what I love about it. Citroën has picked up the legacy of the Renault Duster, which was the recipe of a simple automobile that would do things unrealistic at that price point and easy to maintain with a front-wheel drive setup, and has taken it, polished it up and given it to the Indian consumers. Perhaps the Indian consumers are not respecting it the way they should have, and I feel sorry about it. But this is one of the greatest cars in the history of the country. Of course, it did not have the automatic gearbox back in 2023, last year. And because of that, we sort of detested it from getting the Car of the Year award. An automatic gearbox, especially in India, and especially with the spending power of our consumers, is an utmost requirement at every car. If you're giving a car with just the manual gearbox, it would not work. But I'm glad to say Citroën has chosen a torque converter gearbox with this 1.2 litre turbocharged petrol engine, making it a very robust, reliable and easy to maintain setups. Like what Volkswagen twins have had for the past couple of years with their 1 liter turbocharged petrol engine and that 6-speed automatic gearbox. It's worked wonders for the brand. I'm glad they did not choose the AMT or the CVT that they get in the international markets, and especially in the Latin American markets, and have gone for this torque converter 6-speed gearbox. Absolutely brilliant choice of mechanical setup. And what a car to drive! I mean, I'm just going over some stupidly rough roads, overtaking the traffic, and I don't feel a thing under my butt. That's the power of Citroën. Citroën makes comfortable cars better than any manufacturer in India right now. So you better respect it.
The C3 AirCross is not something that you can call basic. It has small details everywhere and the fit and finish is actually quite good. There are beautiful design details and the color combinations are also quite quirky, to be honest.
Out in the city traffic, the C3 AirCross feels very, very beautiful to drive. It's a very creamy gearbox, this one. The first and the second gears are extremely well calibrated. Now, there is absolutely no jerk that you feel while the car is shifting from the first gear to the second gear while crawling through the city traffic like we are doing right now. We are driving at about 15 to 20 kilometers an hour going through the airport region out towards the highway, and it just makes you feel very relaxed, very comfortable. It feels more like a CVT at lower RPMs than a torque converter, which is very surprising because it's very, very smooth. Now, as we transition onto the highway, the same torque converter gearbox gets a little too aggressive. It shifts nicely and keeps you in the power band most of the time, making the best use of that 190 some Newton meters of torque that's available through this 1.2 liter turbocharged petrol engine. Doing about 65 kilometers an hour, and I could barely feel that I'm pushing the car or I could push the car any harder. And if I accelerate even a bit, it takes about a second to react this gearbox because it's tuned for comfort than outright performance, but it does the job rather well. Out on the highway, this would be a very, very relaxed gearbox, very good for long distance cruising and to extract out the best fuel economy that you can, because up in the 6th gear, which is the overdrive gear of this gearbox, which you would be using at max while doing long distance trips on the highway, it sits at 2000 RPM, which is the creamiest rev band, and at 105 kilometers per hour, which is absolutely amazing. This changes the character of how you use the C3 AirCross on your daily trips, which is fantastic.
It's not all rainbows and butterflies on the inside, as the plastic on the dashboard feels a little scratchy and hard, although the seat base is actually quite plush. The gear lever also feels a little lackluster with the absence of a rubber or leatherette boot. And the window switches for the front are placed on the driver's side, and for the rear passengers, it is awkwardly placed between the front driver and passenger seats. Why is it there in the year 2024? I don't understand. Although, all of these things aside, the front seats are absolutely wonderful to sit and spend long hours in. They're pretty wide and have quite a lot of support for even large size human beings. And the combination of fabric and leatherette makes it pretty easy to use during hot summer days. There is a 10.25-inch touchscreen infotainment system which has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on offer. And there is a proper digital instruments display that's coming as standard in the C3 AirCross.
So what is my verdict from this very short drive that I did in the C3 AirCross with this 6-speed automatic gearbox? Number one, this gearbox is tuned for comfort and long distance driving. On the highway, this would not run out of steam even if you're doing about 120 kilometers an hour. This would be perfectly comfortable doing lower RPMs in that overdrive gear, making it a very efficient package. Now, fuel economy wise, This car has been giving me about 14 and a half, 15 kilometers to the liter within the city. I'm sure this is going to be able to touch about 25, 26 kilometers to the liter on the highway with 4 people on board and some bags, if you're brave enough. And I will do that test very, very soon when I take this car down to Gujarat with my family. That's on the cards. But overall, this gearbox changes the game of how this 1.2 liter turbocharged petrol engine behaves. I hope Citroën makes it available in the C3 turbo hatchback as well, and not just in the C3 AirCross exclusively, because this gearbox is butter smooth and it does exude that character of comfort to the max. As far as I'm concerned, and the only nitpick that I have, and a huge one at that, is that this car is missing a cruise control system. It wouldn't have been very expensive for Citroën to install that, but cost-cutting measures and the competition on the price point has made Citroën leave that option out for India, perhaps. The Latin American market gets it. Sadly, if that would have been here in this car, I would have put down the money for this car immediately. It's that good of a package. Citroën India, please put the cruise control button on this car as soon as possible. I know, your finances might get hit a little bit, but that one feature for long distance travelers is an absolute boon, especially when we are having such wonderful highways all across the country now. Just think about it.